Hi guys, Martin here, Man City Fan TV, and welcome to our latest interview. And as you can see, we've got a big guest this week, a former Blue, a former defender at the club, the one and the only Spencer Pryor. So Spencer, how are you doing, buddy?
Good morning. Yeah, not too bad. Keeping nice and safe down here in Sydney. I hope you're keeping well over there. Seems like you're all still in lockdown. So, yeah, it's been an interesting time. But, yeah, keeping well over here.
I wouldn't say we were still in lockdown. Everyone seems to be getting on, so everything's normal nowadays.
Yeah, it's been a funny time, right? So, obviously, it's been challenging, not just with sport, but everything else over there. So, it's... hopefully we can try and come through it reasonably soon, but it's good to see the football's back on anyway.
Yeah, how have you been coping in your lockdown and
Mate,
COVID-19?
We're quite blessed. We live in a good place, and we shut the borders very quickly over here, and we haven't had too many deaths. Obviously, work and stuff's been impacted, but we've been able to get out and about. We kind of come back gradually, lifted restrictions slowly. The guys down in Victoria, they seem to be messing it about, and they don't seem to be able to wash their hands and keep themselves nice and clean. So they've gone backwards in terms of their restrictions, but we seem to be moving slowly through it here in New South Wales. So it's all right.
I'm sure I know someone in Melbourne quite well who it's probably part of the reason that Melbourne might be locking down again.
He smashes me. He can't stand it. He's going mad down there, is Alan. He's going nuts. He's going bonkers at his local ministers that are constantly changing and not letting people go back to work. I think he'd be like, I think he's a Donald Trump fan, to be honest. I think he'd just lift the whole thing now and have this mentality and just go for it. But no, we can't do that. We can't do that over here. We've had 103 deaths in total, I think. So, we've been very, very good with it.
Yeah, I think the UK is approaching 45,000 deaths at the moment. Slightly different.
Yeah.
Slightly different, unfortunately. Right, well, we're going to talk about football. It's why we're here. We don't want to talk about the situation, and I certainly don't want to talk about Mr. Howard for very much longer, because I want to keep it interesting. Right, first question I'm going to ask for you. What made you sign for Manchester City, and what were your actual initial thoughts before or when you actually joined the club?
So I was at Derby at the time, and I'd had a really good season. And I went in and saw Jim Smith, and Jim turned around and said to me, "Look, I don't know whether to give you a big long contract or sell you." And as a player, that's really unsettling, right? So the club was in, and I didn't know at the time, but the club was in financial difficulty, and they needed to raise money really quick. It was coming up towards deadline day, and as I said, Jim kind of put the doubts in my mind that he wanted to keep me long term. He needed to raise money. I then got sniff that Man City were interested in signing. So I was working really close with a sports psych at Derby.
Yeah.
Called Bill Bezic. And Bill went on after Derby. He went to Man United, and he went work with England. He's very, very good. And I was working with him quite closely at Derby. Anyway, he's a Man City supporter. So I said, Bill, you got to get me there. And he's like, don't worry, mate. I want to get you because I'm a Man City supporter. Anyway, we then went and started talking. It was done very, very quickly. I was excited by the prospect, to be honest. As a player, wherever you go and play, you always want to feel that you're wanted and needed. And it's better to go and work for a manager and with a club that the manager wants you there. And have him met and spoke with Joe. It was just from the get-go that he really wanted me to go in, try to help get the sorted. I didn't see it as a step back to go from what was a good, solid, established Premier League set up in Derby to a club like Man City, where it was borderline whether we were going to get promotion or not. Obviously, I'd gone on previously and how it had gone promotion, and to go again was going to be super tough. So I just knew from the minute that I went there, saw the club and Maine Road, that it was something I wanted to do. So it happened very, very quickly. I think I travelled up to Manchester for talks, and literally I just phoned the missus and said, "Yep, done. We're sorted. We're moving to Manchester." So it was very quick, very quick.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't. It was quite quick. You made your debut, wasn't it, against West Brom in a 2-1 home win? What was your impressions that day? And did any of your initial impressions change stepping out at Maine Road in front of a full house and everything?
Do you know the thing, right? There was a lot of even leading into the game, there was a lot of things that we did. So I joined in the week, and then, you know, we were training at Platt Lane, and we would then go and have to sit down. And to be fair, I come from a club that had really good infrastructure. You know, Derby's infrastructure was very good at the time. You know, so we had different things. I would say, in terms of professionalism at that time, Derby was years ahead of Man City in terms of professionalism and how they approach training.
Yeah.
So I joined, and there were certain things that we would do in training with Willie Donaghy. He was brilliant coach. But there were certain things that were like, hey, this is just all a bit strange. We'd have to sit and do some meditation things, and then going into the West Brom game, you know, for me to find out that when we're going to go and get changed at the stadium, but then we're going to go and warm up at a little school down the road. We're going to get in a minibus and we're going to go and drive down to a school.
Because I used to watch you train in there in this gym with a little sponge ball. It was surreal.
We also used to get changed, and they used to say to us, "Make sure you bring your trainers because we've got to go to the school for a warm up." I'm like, "What the bloody hell is this all about? What for? Why are we doing this?" To be fair, so even before the game and leading into the game, there were real things that it didn't worry me. You know, you adapt to the environment that you're in, and you had to do that as a player. But it was very, very strange, very strange. And I think there was an element of superstition why they kept doing what they were doing. The fans completely behind the players at that time. But I think all the issues that had gone on when the club had been struggling, they were things that obviously had a lot of impact on the players psychologically going into the game. So they kept with these superstitions. When we eventually got out onto the pitch 2 minutes before kickoff, and you see a full house, that was the reason I signed, just for that atmosphere. It was next level.
Yeah, I mean, Maine Road is. I mean, I know we're in the Etihad now, and it's all modern and everything, but I love Maine Road. I've always said it looked like a blind architect had built it, with every stand different and all different heights, but it was, for atmosphere, it was electric. It was just absolute, and I miss it, and I still miss it now, because as much as
the new ones are. The new ones, I understand why they're building the new stadiums. I mean, let's be honest, commercial commercial dollars, the corporate boxes and the social stuff for families. I understand it, but you do really lose that sense of culture and heritage and history that is there with it. The game against West Brom was Lee Hughes schooled me in about the first 10 minutes and scored a worldie. And I was like, shit, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be, To be fair, we did go on and win the game, and it was just started the momentum that was going for the rest of the season, right? But yeah, the first 10 minutes as an introduction, getting schooled by Lee Hughes was a great player, by the way. Was a bit of a wake up call.
Yeah, I can imagine Lee Hughes I think he was top goal scorer in the league once. I think he was.
What a player!
I always wondered why he never got a move to a big club in the Premier League, because his goal record was phenomenal. It really, really was.
Yeah, super talented. I think he had. I'm don't quite. He might have had some issues that were going on off the pitch that I think stopped managers investing in him. And everyone goes through different things, but yeah, great player, very, very good player.
Yeah, good. Well, coming back to, obviously you came, you joined, and you signed for Joe Royle. Now there's been a lot of rumours over here about the Joe Royle dressing room. Now, the rumours of the drinking culture and other things like that. I know Richard Dunn got into trouble under Keegan following Royle's reign. Now, I love Joe Royle. I thought he was exactly what we needed at the time. He got the club, he understood the club, he played for the club, and it was exactly what we needed. What was the actual dressing room like under Joe Royle? What was it like as an atmosphere? And did it galvanise? Could you see the promotion push when you did come in?
100%. So before I went to Derby, I was at Leicester, and I would say that the dressing room at Man City was probably as close to that Leicester dressing room where I was before, with the likes of Muzzy Izzet and Neil Lennon, Matt Elliott, Rob Savage. These guys, the banter was insane. The togetherness was it was next level in terms of you fought for your teammate. Joe was a really, really top manager. Knew how to set the team up. He gave autonomy to the players to be responsible for their own actions. If you wanted to go out and have a beer, go and have a beer. But you had to be able to turn up on a Saturday and perform.
Yeah, which is only fair.
So that was the culture at the time, was that you, as professional athletes, you were responsible for your own personal actions. And you know what? If you didn't perform, then you'd be punted and dropped. I wouldn't say we were in a dressing room where we all held each other accountable. We kind of just, if we went for a beer, we all went for a beer, and we probably did it all together. And I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't want that group to be remembered for that. Okay, I want that group to be remembered for the incredibly talented footballers that were there. Ian Bishop, Choppy came in, Mark Kennedy came in. You had the Whitleys who were there. They're born and bred there, right? They're the service they gave to the club. Kevin Horlock. We had some incredible talented footballers that were good working class guys that knew, they worked hard and they played hard. And that generation of footballer, work hard, play hard. And
nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong at all. And which leads me on, you just said you don't want the team to be remembered for things like that. My next question, this is why this team is remembered. Blackburn Rovers, I was there on the final day of the season. I think it was, we had to better Ipswich Town, didn't we? I think at the time on the last day. I was there. I didn't manage to get in the stadium. I was on the hill, or the bank as they called it back then. I managed to get in after the game. Now, it was just incredible. I've watched it back since. The first 20 odd minutes, we got battered from pillar to post. I think Matt Jansen had hit the post 3-4 times, the bar. We rode our luck. And then and there's one thing I remember you doing. I think it was when Matt Kennedy scored. I think there was a picture I've seen of you going over up to Joe Royal and hugging him. And I always remember that.
Do you know the game was? So I don't remember. I don't really remember details of the game. Okay, so I think when you're playing in the game, I think there was so much emotion and mentally draining stuff leading up to the game. I.e., from when I joined before the West Brom game, and we had to keep winning and winning and winning, and every single game we had to win because we couldn't shake off Ipswich who were chasing us, right? And we just had to keep winning. We were, as I said, we were quite a good social bunch. We thought by the time we got to the Blackburn game that we would have got promoted.
Yeah.
Right. So we were all talking about, it'd be great, wouldn't it? It'd be great to go into that game. We can all wear our gazelles and we can all just have a bit of fun and just enjoy the party. Well, we couldn't. We just had to keep winning every game. And I think we beat Birmingham in the week before, and we thought that was it.
Right. That was. Didn't the fans get criticised for that? Because I remember we all ran on the pitch.
We thought we were done.
And we all got. Sky did a big number on us saying they're celebrating too early, they're being premature, what they're doing. And we were just, we hadn't been in the Premier League for God knows how long. We were on the verge of doing it.
So the one thing I would say as a player, and this was me as a player, right? I never ever got caught up in the emotion of what was going on in the game. You talked about me going over to Joe Royal, and I'll be honest, and it wasn't that I kept myself isolated, but I never went and did the whole celebration with players. I just, right, we scored, next. Right?
Yeah.
It was me. So that was just how I was. I would never really celebrate until a game was won. Just out of habit. I never really did. So I was never the one. I was never the centre back that would run 50, 60 yards to go and chase a group of players to go celebrate with them, because I've got to run 60 yards back to get ready for them coming at us. And the thing where you saw me with Joe, I think 5-10 minutes before that, I thought I broke my ribs. In the game, Ashley Ward tried an overhead kick, and I stupidly, as he was trying to do it, I went and headed the ball away, and he absolutely volleyed me in my ribs. And I thought I broke my ribs. So I'd come off the pitch and I'd been on, and I just remember that when Mark Kennedy scored, it was like, right, we can relax a little bit. I did want to go and celebrate with Joe, and go and see what was going on there. There's no way I was going to be chasing Mark Kennedy. He was too fast for me. But at the end of the game, when the whistle went, I was. If you see all the celebrations that are going on in the changing room, I think I was still on the pitch. I couldn't get off the pitch. I finished up. There's a picture of me sort of running, trying to dodge everyone. And I got caught up. And I finished up. By the time I got into the dressing room, I think the celebrations had happened, and I was literally down to my pants. Everything else had been stripped off me. So if anyone's got me boots, can I have them back? I had nothing literally on. And I remember getting into the changing room after and I was mentally absolutely battered like never before. It was a highly draining 9-10 games that I was involved with. I think nothing else ever like it in terms of that intensity had happened in my career. And like you said in the game, we got smashed. We got absolutely smashed in the first half. But I don't remember it really affecting me, and we just stayed, just kept going and kept going and kept going, and eventually we managed to get on the scoreboard, and the rest was history.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, I think that's what that team is going to be remembered for. I mean, it must have been when, I mean, like you said, you were probably focused in the game, but as we come down the bank and we were at the gates and we got let in, I mean, you got to remember, we were the away team. You know, normally there's only 4,000 fans in there. There must have been 20,000 City fans in that stadium that day. It was madness.
So that was the point when we realised that. And I'll be honest, as a group of players, we didn't even know. Like, we were all scrambling around trying to get our families and stuff, our wives and families tickets before the game. And also all our mates were all asking. So we knew that there was an interest from the fans to want to come to the game. But I'll be 100% honest, and you know, you could talk to Bish or any of them. I'm not sure any of the players realised just how many Man City supporters were in there until we scored. And then we realised, and it was like, shit, what the hell's going on here? Like, suddenly it was all our supporters. And it was only at that moment that it really kicked in just how many we had in the ground. I would say that was the point that probably lifted the players even more, that right on that, to go on and eventually go and just win the game comfortably. I mean, if you looked at the score and you'd say we dominated it, but realistically, everybody knows we got battered.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great scene of the referee. I can't remember his name. I think it was when Matt Jansen had hit the bar for the third time. He just turns away, puffs his cheeks out. This is the referee, and shakes his head as though, like, what's going on here? How many are they getting away with? And that's what it just felt like. It was. But again, I'm up on the bank. I managed to see the goal, the equaliser when he scored, because it was at our end. And luckily, all of them were, from the Dickey goal to the Mark Kennedy to the Christine Daly own goal. Everything it was weird because they were all at the end where we were at the top of that hill.
Yeah.
We were just in a perfect position for it.
I would have loved to have had a coach cam on Graham Souness throughout that first half when they kept it in the bar and the post, because, you know, obviously Charlton had gone there and got promoted the week before, and Graham Souness was very, very much no team is going to come here, and he was fuming. He was fuming that Charlton got promoted at Blackburn, and he said, that's not going to happen again. So apparently he was all lovely towards Joe and everything was really lovely before the game. But I think he was absolutely filthy after the game. That, you know, we voted there as well. So I think during the first half when they kept it in the bar and the post, I think he'd have been going off chops, to be honest with you. So
yeah, imagine. I mean, we got promoted. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I would look at that game and say everything else that had gone in the season, we used every single bit of luck that was available in that one game. And I don't know whether, you know, before I joined, whether there have been moments where we had we didn't have the run of the play and decisions and things go for us. But whatever we accumulated and saved up, we used every ounce of luck in that 45 minutes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But we got there back-to-back promotions, got to the Premier League, and then it was Haaland and Paulo One Shot. And one player I've got to bring it up because I was one of the fools who got his name on the shirt. 22, I was over the moon. George Weah. All I'm going to say is, talk to me about him. And what happened? That has got to be the craziest 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many weeks he was there.
Well, we moved. So also at the end of the season, we moved from Platt Lane to Carrington, and it was a bit of a dump at the time. I mean, Carrington. I went when I came back last time. I came back and I went and visited Carrington because they were still there at that time. Place has been done up, or it had been done up exactly how the club said it was going to get done. Right? It was really, really well done up. They had all these visions for it, but at the time it was a working man's club, right? So we finished the movement. We moved from Platt Lane into this Shell. It used to be owned by Shell, I think. So Shell Club, and it was like going back to school in school changing rooms. The gym was a big facility that we rocked up and set up a head tennis thing, and we had some weights in there. The pitches were paddocks. The pitches were cow paddocks. They were set up for rugby, and they were really heavy, really heavy. You know, the sort where when you're running and your boots clog up with mud and you can't see your studs. It was like that. It would get so super heavy. And then through this, and then George rocked up. We were all out training. He came out, I think, 20 minutes after everybody else, and started training. And when we signed him, we were like, Jesus Christ, this is a big statement from the club. We're the intentions are really high, and we're gonna. Who's coming in after? Who can you get in after George Weah? That's going to be right. So he came in and he started training, and in the first training session, I remember Joe turning to a little group of us going, I think I've signed his brother. Because he was that bad in training.
Really? Wow.
He was that bad in his first training session. He went, I think I've got his brother. And, let's not, I don't want to undermine everything he'd done before he came to Man City, because absolute, true, world-class footballer. Everybody knows what he did. He didn't integrate as much as, as you said, we had a group of players at the time that worked hard and played hard together. And George didn't really integrate in that. Obviously, he kept himself to himself. There were times that I think he came out and criticised the players publicly. And that kind of rubbed everyone up the wrong way. Once someone did that, whether it will be that whether he'd come out publicly and say it, or whether he'd say it openly in the changing room, but he would be talking and saying, these players aren't good enough for this, and these players aren't good enough for that. And I don't know. Just didn't, from that point on, it was like, just, it didn't work out.
Could you tell early on that it wasn't going to work? That it all been a big mistake, really. And
yeah, great intention from the club. Let's be honest. I mean, you're signing George Weah. It does. It sort of, it did make a big statement, and everybody knew. I knew when I was coming in just the size and the potential of the club, right? So to sign a player like George Weah did set everything off. I think the first step was obviously us getting into the Premier League. There's no way that George Weah would have come in if we'd have stayed in the Championship. But the first step was just to get in the Premier League and then start to slowly recruit players and sign players. I'm not sure he was a Joe Royle type player.
No, it was a very. I mean, Alfinger Haaland, yeah, he was a Joe Royle type of player, but George Weah and even One Shot, I wouldn't say were a Joe Royle type of player, like you say.
I put Choppy in there. Choppy was next level. He was really class.
He was phenomenal. Yeah.
And at his prime as well. But George had been there and done it, and I think that Joe might have struggled a little bit to manage George Weah. And that's nothing against Joe, but where someone's been and been coached by so many like world class managers, I think there might have been a bit of undermining going on as well, which made it awkward and hard for Joe at times. Amy Alf and Choppy and Danny come in, and Steve Howie. Those guys, they all sort of respected and really worked with Joe.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a weird, very weird signing. Shame it didn't last, but, you know, off the back of that, I think we went on and made some very, very good signings.
Oh, yeah. Richard Dunn, club legend. Haaland, we all know about. Fortunately, was ended by a certain somebody. I won't mention his name on air because people won't like that. I'm quite hoping his son comes and signs for us though at some point. That'd be nice. But like I say, Steve Howe, Richard Dunn, we made some really, really shrewd signings. What went wrong then that year? Was it a season too soon to go up? Was it the back-to-back promotions? Was it a year too soon?
Yeah, probably. Well, I say probably. In hindsight, yeah, it probably was. I think at the time. So when you go from the Championship to the Premier League, obviously it's a major step up, and yeah, I think culturally the players didn't adapt as well as we could have to the Premier League demands. Yeah, we didn't adapt as much as we should have. I'll leave it at that and say, you know, we probably needed to do some things slightly different to what we did.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I mean, it's a little bit ironic. We actually got relegated or he got confirmed at Portman Road. Yeah. You know, just a bit ironic from the season before we stopped Ipswich getting promoted. I know they came up through the playoffs in the end, and then it was Portman Road where our fate was sealed, funnily enough. It just seems to be something round and about in football. Yeah. Unfortunately. Now, obviously, you didn't stay long. I think that was your final year.
Yeah.
What was the reason? Was it you wanted to move on? Did you want to stay? What was the reason that you didn't stay longer?
I loved it there. Look, I loved Manchester. It was really. We had a beautiful house. We were living in Bowden. We had a lovely house. Everything was settled with the family. Obviously disappointed with what went on with the way that the season finished. I think at that time as well, there was some personal things that, you know, I needed to change myself. If I was going to finish off my career or have any longevity in my career, I think there were certain things that I needed to change personally. That said, I was back at home one day and I got a phone call from Alan Cork out of the blue, and he said, "Look, he introduced himself, told me who he was, spoke about what he was looking to do with Cardiff and how much he wanted me to go down and be a part of that. He said he spoke to Kevin Keegan, and Kevin said I wasn't part of the plans. So I talked to Corky a lot. I really respected him as a manager, actually. Respected his opinion. Obviously, he had to be a bit of a salesman to try to get me to leave Man City to go and play down in League One with Cardiff. But again, when you'll find yourself in a situation where you got someone like Kevin Keegan saying you're probably going to be about a fourth or fifth choice centre back, you're going, well, what's the point of me hanging around? And as much as I love the club, and as much as I loved the badge that I was wearing, saying I'm a Man City player, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit around, pick up my money, and not play, because life, the career's too short to just sit on a bench or not even be on a bench and just pick up money. And it wasn't that I didn't want to fight for a place, but if you're being told that even, pretty much if you fight for a place,
you're still not getting it.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to sit. I've never sat and just picked up my money somewhere. I always played. So, I played over 600 games, and you can't play that many games by just being a bench warmer or just not playing. And I went down, talked to Corky. I still had a year. I think I had a year or 18 months or something like that left on my contract. I went and met with him. I liked what he wanted to do. I met with Sam Haman, who, great.
Yeah, he was a character.
I got Sam. Me and Corky got Sam drunk in Cardiff, right? He don't really drink, so we got him drunk, and he fell asleep in a nightclub next to a speaker the night that I went down for talks. It was an amazing experience meeting and talking to Sam. Sold me the dream of what he wanted to do. He had all these visions of eventually wanting Cardiff to play Millennium Stadium and everything. So I then moved back to Manchester. We'd agreed terms. In fact, no, that's wrong. We started talking terms, and Sam started going, "Oh, look, I want to pay you this, and I'll pay you so much money for a clean sheet bonus and a goal scoring bonus." And but the salary wasn't what I would have left for. So I went, "Look, it's not going to happen." And then the next minute, I'm still a Man City player at the time, but I went to Sorrento for a holiday with a missus, and I found out that Alan Cork was staying on Capri. So we got the ferry across from Sorrento to Capri to go and meet with Corky for an afternoon, meet him and his missus. And we had quite a bit to drink. And then I got the ferry back from Capri to Sorrento. And by the time I got back, I'd had a phone call from Sam Haman saying, Corky loves you. You can have whatever you want. This is literally in the 45 minutes ferry trip from Capri to Sorrento. Corky's obviously phoned Sam Haman, and it was done. Taking the missus, moving her from Bowden to the north in Wales was the worst thing I could have done. We had a beautiful house I lived on the road of the Griffin in Bowden. It was lovely, beautiful. And I was next door to Michael Lavelle. He was my next door neighbour. Beautiful house. And then I took her to this 3-bed chalet where we rented for 6 months while we were trying to buy our house down there. And let's just say that was probably the toughest 6 months of my life, particularly leaving a club like Man City. Not only leaving there at the time I did, there were things that were still going on at the club even after I left that I knew that I knew things would change eventually. They kind of did, but they took a long time to change. And I had no regrets leaving in terms of the football because I knew I wanted to play. But I was really sad at leaving the club and such a great set of supporters behind, knowing the potential that it had and obviously seeing how it's gone. I don't feel now that at any time would I have ever been a part of what's gone on and how it progressed. My style and my attributes were completely different and fitted into the club at the time. But, you know, you have to roll with the punches. And if a manager says they don't want you, then they don't want you. And I never actually met Kevin Keegan. The closest I got to having any communication with Kevin Keegan was when I'd agreed my terms with Cardiff. And I just said, look, I got to settle my contract here with Man City, and they said, look, we can't get hold of Kevin, he's in Disneyland. So I was like, well, you got 24 hours to get hold of Kevin Keegan to get the settlement sorted, otherwise I'm not leaving. So the closest I got to speaking to Kevin Keegan was going through the secretary who had to get hold of Kevin Keegan in Disneyland to approve my termination of my contract.
I honestly find that mental. I never spoke to Keegan.
Nah, never spoke to him. Never spoke to him. Never have spoke to him. Here's what it is, you know? And that's someone comes in and they go down a path of what they want. That's absolutely fine, and that's a manager's prerogative. I understand that, but that was the closest I got to speaking to Kevin Keegan, was disturbing his holiday in Disneyland.
Oh, well, like you just said, City's changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I presume, do you follow the club now? Do you follow City?
100%.
What do you think? What do you think of the club now under Pep? And we'll come to FFP and UEFA soon, because a certain someone's told me to ask you about that, and he's waiting on your answer. But before we hit that, City under Pep, what do you think?
Club's amazing. The club is amazing, and you know, going from, you know, we talked about it at the start when they moved from Maine Road now to Etihad, and you know what the new owners have actually done in terms of not just, you know, in terms of urban regeneration. Not just about the football, but about the community and how they've built a city, essentially, and you know, all these housing projects that they've developed and built shows that the owners have a great understanding of where the club sits within the community and how important socially integration is between the club and its fans and Manchester. It doesn't just dismiss that. You know, it's not just this club that's stuck where fans are travelling in from London, you know, or all parts of the country to come and support. You know, this is the heart and soul. It's the heart and soul of the community, and they understand that. I don't know, because I haven't been to Etihad, but I don't know whether the everyday fans are getting priced out of being able to go and attend games and take families. This is a concern that I think that might be going on generally in football. But
yeah, it's. I mean, to be fair to the club, they do try, but it's more on cup games where you get quid a kid and they come in as a family. But you know, your Chelsea's, your United's, them sort of games, you're still talking a lot of money. And I don't think it's just City. I think, unfortunately, it's football in general. And I think that's something football need to look at when eventually fans do get back into the stadium, really.
So I see what's gone on off the pitch in terms of the investment in infrastructure. The new training facility is genuinely world class. The academy setup is next level. The club put significant investment into the women's team as well. I look at that, I follow that really closely. I managed to meet with Gavin Makel and Nick Cushing over in Canada at the Women's World Cup in 2015 and talk to them a lot about the club in terms of what they're doing, even on the women's side. So I see as clubs progressing holistically. And then, of course, you've got the main focus, which is obviously the men's team, because if you ain't successful in that, the rest of the club doesn't really matter. And first of all, getting someone like Pep Guardiola there was huge, and how he's brought in an incredibly talented group of players that have just been able to slot straight in. The pipeline of players coming through. We've started seeing players coming through from the academy and being developed. We see players like Phil Foden that coming in and looking, and that's the next generation of players that are going to take the club forward. Really, a domestic, homegrown player that's going to start to move the club forward. It's great that you've got, with the absolute legends of like your Sergio Aguero's, but he ain't going to be around forever. And, these players, as you get older, you start to pick up more injuries. Hopefully he gets back fit for the Champions League conclusion, but, you've got to find your replacements. And the club has invested so heavily in terms of the scouting network and recruitment team. I know Paul Butler was very, very involved with it for a few years before he's now moved on back to the dirty Liverpool mob. But he's, the number of scouts and the number of pounds that are invested in talent ID to make sure there's this pipeline of players that come through that fit into the Man City model. I know we'll talk about it in a minute, but the FFP thing has got significant impact on that as well, right? In terms of who you can recruit and how you recruit. I think
Spencer, let's talk about it now. You mentioned it. UEFA, FFP. Well, I know I think of it. You probably know what 99% of Blues think about it. What do you think?
I understand you need something in place. You got to have something in place to protect 99% of clubs. Right? You have to have something in place to protect clubs from going and spending beyond their means. Right? Yeah. Otherwise, finish up with another situation like Bury, or you got to protect these lower league clubs as well, or the mid-tier clubs that we saw years ago what happened with Leeds. Okay, so having played for Cardiff against Leeds in the FA Cup at the time when Leeds were going great in the Champions League and at the top of the Premier League, and then suddenly you find out they've borrowed this much money that and Rizdale basically sent the club bankrupt, right? And they had to sell off all the assets and they had to strip right back, all because they could go and borrow against something that they weren't earning and they didn't have. So I understand why you've got a system in place to protect 99% of the clubs. However, when you get a situation where you get a club with an owner that's a squillionaire, genuinely does want to invest in the club and invest in the community and put into the team and buy, he's not going anywhere, then that's an exceptional circumstance where there's got to be some mutual way around it. Now, if if Man City did break the rules, then you've broken the rules, and therefore punishment should be in place, right? If you have broken rules, then you got to abide by the rules that are there. So that's whether FFP is fair or it's not. Rules are rules, and we've got to abide by the rules. I just think that the rules that probably are there at the moment are in place to protect the clubs that have historically got a bigger world fan base to be able to
I know what you mean, yeah.
To be able to go and borrow from the banks against their equity and their market value based on what their stuff growth is, and it's not right in terms of it really protects the older historical clubs that essentially want to protect their own assets and stop a new situation. And look, whether it's right or wrong, you know, there's the talk obviously with what's going on at Newcastle with a potential big investor coming in there, right? That's the next club that could be as big as a Man City, but the rules are going to stop this guy going and being able to buy and bring in who he wants to bring in without breaking FFP rules. And Newcastle's a great club. It's got a great fan base in itself. It doesn't have that market share and capacity to be able to say, well, you can go and buy whoever you want. And the owner might be able to afford it. You know, he just has to go to his car ashtray and he can pull out however many million he wants to pull out. But that doesn't mean that he can go and buy whoever he wants, because there's a liability then against the club. And no one wants to see clubs go bust, right? No one wants to see another situation what happened with Leeds. We don't want to see that. So I understand why the rules and things are in place. You can't break rules, fair and simple, but ultimately the rules wrong, and that's where I think that Man City are kind of looking and going, well, the rules aren't right. So I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's my big, because my thing, I've always said it, and I've said it to the guys on the channel as well. It's like me winning the lottery and then someone saying to me, you're not allowed to spend it because you didn't earn it. You're banned from spending it. And the thing is, I've always said, City at the moment, I've got to be careful because, like I said, it's really the rule that's wrong, but the rule is there. And if we have broken it, unfortunately, we have to hold our hands up and go, we've done it. But we can argue the rule is wrong. And I think that is the problem. It's the rule that's wrong. And it's also been put in for the wrong motive. It's not been put in for the reason it was initially put in for, shall we say. Otherwise, United wouldn't be allowed to get £600 million in debt, or they wouldn't be allowed to do it.
You know, we look at when the Glazers took over at the dirty mob down the road, and they basically just reinvested everything and built up this massive debt against the club, and basically borrowed and leveraged straight away. And the other clubs haven't been able to do that, and that's not fair, and that's not fair in the marketplace, and that's not competitive either. So it really stacked it in favour of those clubs to be able to leverage and do that sort of stuff. I understand, obviously, you know, with it having gone to CAS, I would imagine that it wasn't just an argument about Man City's case, but Man City might have been also arguing behind the scenes for the change, you know, the change in the whole structure to be able to protect the assets and the interests that the club have got themselves. The outcome is going to be huge impact in terms of the playing squad, who stays if they are banned, who wants to stay at a club for 2 years that can't play in Champions League. Also, who can you recruit that wants to come in? It's going to be an interesting outcome. and there could be a lot of change from players, and but I don't, to speculate on that would be wrong based until we know the facts and what the result is.
Exactly, and hopefully we'll find out in 2 or 3 weeks. But Spencer, what is it? Last question I'm going to ask for you before we wrap this up. Obviously, you mentioned earlier on where you are. Sounds like you're in Australia. What have you been doing since the end of football then? How have you got into being in Australia?
Well, I went back to Southend.
Yeah.
Cardiff, went back home, and I played there for 3 years, and really enjoyed it, and had some good success when I went back there. I started there. My aim was always to finish there as well. It's my hometown team. So the whole plan was to go back home and be with family, and we got back there and went, oh, this is pretty shit. There's more to life than this. So we got to go and find something else. So we finished up in 2005, 2006, looking at Australia, and we got a 4-year visa to come over. We moved to Sydney. Then once I got here, mate, they don't give a rat's ass down here about what you've done in football. They couldn't give a monkey's. Like, if you're a foreigner, you're a foreigner, particularly if you're English. And, I think there was guys who had it, even when I just arrived, and I'm like, no, I've done this and I've done that, but it doesn't really matter. Terry Butcher came over. Terry Butcher's name was absolutely bastardized before his tyres hit the tarmac. He was absolutely smashed. He had no chance at Sydney FC. The media guys absolutely pounded him. So coming in as an English guy here, I wrongly thought I'll get an opportunity to go and progress and look at coaching. Didn't really materialise from the start. So I went and did some stuff. Got my A licence, and then got into working with the women's national team. Got into there. Went to work in 2011 with the women's national team down here. Continued and progressed my coaching staff. Got my pro licence done. Went down and took a state federation as a technical director. Then I took a couple of jobs over in Thailand. I went over there as a women's national team, and then came back. And basically said, football down here, it's going through a big transition down here at the moment. Huge transition, right? Huge. The league has been going for 12 years and it's not really progressed. It's had lots of non-football people running the federation. Non-football people that want to bring in ideas from AFL and from Big Bash cricket and think that they can use those ideas to influence football and be in football. But football's football, right? And it's culturally completely different. It's not a normal sport. It's football, and other sports don't adapt into football. So we've had a lot of situations here where the game is just getting dragged down and down and down, and integration has been poor between the historical clubs and the new franchises. It's very, very American in the model. It's similar to MLS, and very, very similar. So I've stepped away from football completely, 100% stepped away. Until the game kind of sorts itself out and works out what it wants to do. I'm actually gone into doing some recruitment at the moment. So I'm working for a big global recruitment company called Randstad. And I'm actually looking after engineers. So I'm doing that, and I'm doing a psychology degree just to try and keep myself educated and mentally sharp. I hope the game sorts itself out down here. There's a huge collective of ethnic diversity that should be embraced and not ostracized from the game. They stick with their historical clubs, their Croatian clubs and their Italian clubs and their British clubs, but they've been set aside for many years, and it's going to take a lot to get them back into the football family. Hopefully we've got a great CEO now at the Federation who is trying to bring everybody back in. Our constitution is still a basket case in terms of Congress and the voting powers. I could spend so long talking about it, but you'd never understand or grasp the concept over there. It's like the county associations telling the FA how they should run.
I know about them. I used to manage under the youth team, so I know all about these counties and how they work.
It's like county associations running football in the country, and you got part-time guys doing that, and that's how it is over here. So it needs to reshape and change. I hope it sorts itself out. We're about to find out literally in about 18 hours if we've got the Women's World Cup in 2023, which will be great for the country. Great for the country. It needs to kick up, it needs to kick up the arse, and it needs a big lift. So hopefully that's something that we get over here. And other than that, I live by the beach and I've got my family's all sorted out here. So it's a nice place to bring my kids up, and they've all grown up now. And yeah, I'm enjoying life here. I miss the football regularly though. Yeah,
well, at the moment, football's back, but not as we used to know it, unfortunately. But it sounds like you're having a cracking time. I mean, unfortunately, apparently, like I said earlier on, somebody that we all know that, can be a little bit annoying sometimes, shall we say?
Just messaging me now. That's how annoying he is.
We love him, really. He knows who he is. We love him, really. Spencer, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It has been a pleasure to speak to you. I remember your debut at Maine Road all the way through. It really is a treat and an honour to speak to you today. So I want to say thank you on behalf of myself and everyone here at Man City Fan TV. Guys, so there you have it. Spencer Pryor. I did warn you we were going to have a big treat for you coming up on the channel. Make sure your notifications are set to public, not private, so you are notified every time we upload a video here on Man City Fan TV. Also, remember the watch along is going to be coming along for the rest of the season. We've got all the games coming up live with you here on Man City Fan TV. Remember, no coverage, just myself talking you through the games. Make sure also, Spencer, have you got a message for everyone out there?
Yeah, look, the more guys that are doing this sort of stuff, it keeps everybody connected. So it'd be great if everyone can subscribe to this channel, just so that, we can all keep engaged with each other and share some stories.
There you go. And that isn't me telling you. That's a former City player telling you to do it. So what more can you want? So, guys, Spencer, again, thank you. Take care, buddy. And also, Spencer Prime might be coming back on the channel to have a chat with a few of us in the near future on a Friday night social. So keep a lookout for that. Guys, enjoy. As always, up the Blues. This is Martin at Man City Fan TV. I've been talking with Spencer Pryor. What a treat. Take care, guys. Up the Blues.